Hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're joining me today. I thought about this idea of coaching or just talking to people about the importance of coaching because of some incident that happened the other day. I want to make sure I give people a little bit of time to join, but we'll talk about that. But in the meantime, this is also an open Q&A session. So don't just join me for me to talk about this because this will be a very small portion of what my time with you today is about. I want to make sure that you get to answer, get questions that you want answered from me as well on this live show, because when are we otherwise maybe going to be able to talk about these things, right? And so if we can get out in the open, answer and engage inside the comments, then maybe we all can learn together. So that's my hope, is that if there are any questions that you have specifically around leadership, managing teams, any obstacles or barriers you're right now are having inside the workplace, on your team, with your manager, anything related to employee retention, just any of those kind of things, something that might pop up. And I will address, there was one question that came up in my last live from somebody who was nice enough to put a question in the comments. And so I'm going to make sure that I answer that one today too, after I get some of your questions answered. And at the same time, talk a little bit about this idea of coaching and why it's important to have a coach if you are a leader, even just supervising one person. Sometimes it's just important to get clarity, particularly if you want to grow as a leader, you want to be elevated and grow in your positions inside your company. You want to make sure that you have someone that's there for helping you to actually grow in that position. So the one of the main reasons why I decided to talk about this is the other day I was with my children, and they were at a taekwondo class, and the person who was helping them was basically, what would happen is one set of people would be going along and doing just fine. And then she would have to occasionally, she'd have to peel off a group of the kids. And some of them were these really tiny kids, probably like 5 and 6 years old. And at one point she said, listen, I want to make sure that you don't take it personally when I decide to move you aside from the rest of the group that's moving forward. This is not a negative reflection on you. What this is it actually is the opportunity for you to grow. Look at it from a positive perspective. I'm helping you improve so that then you can move along on your journey. And I just thought, number one, that was a hugely impressive way for someone to talk to 5, 6, 7-year-olds about something that might actually get them frustrated. They may just break down crying, thinking, wait a second, you're removing me from the pack. What am I doing wrong? What is wrong with me? So sitting there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what coaching is about. Oftentimes what leaders do is they completely feel like if they show that they're imperfect by needing a coach, then they're less of a leader, that they're weaker, and that they're less deserving of the position that they're in. And I'm arguing the exact opposite, as this Taekwondo instructor said as well. She was making it very clear that your success on the journey has so much to do with you or someone else removing you from that current journey to work specifically on you and maybe some of the things and areas that you need to improve on. So today I want to talk to you about really the 3 important reasons for needing a coach, even if you never thought that you needed one. Often I work with organizations who have this kind of coaching system internally, and then they allow people to hire a coach through the organization. And so that's the kind of work that I do. So this is not a sales pitch for you individually. This is just to kind of open up your eyes a little bit on what it is you can do to grow yourself. Okay, so there's 3 kind of main reasons why you might want to hire a coach, or basically approach HR and see if they have a process for leadership investment in that way. So the first one is going to be so that they can help you think outside the box. I don't write very well, so I think you get the point. Thinking outside the box is critical, because what happens is we get in our own way. We block our own paths and our own journeys to success because we don't have anybody to help us expand that view. Sometimes we get ourselves into a pickle and we make bad choices, bad decisions. And so a coach is really there to help us move along in a more productive way, maybe more methodical, thinking things through more clearly before we take certain actions in the workplace. And this happens a lot when you see battles between coworkers, or you see someone who's wanting to talk to their manager and they just don't know how to do it effectively. And sometimes they get in trouble for it. And this could be insubordination issues. So keeping in mind that having someone who helps you think outside the box does not make you weak. it actually makes you much more intelligent, much stronger of a leader than anything else. And it's reflected too in what you do inside the workplace with your team and with your colleagues. Believe me, it's come back to me from folks that I have coached inside the workplace, from people indirectly, that a lot of the efforts that we've put in are actually showing up in the work and in the people's relationships with other inside the workplace. So having someone help you think outside the box, absolutely critical. The other one is helping you remain and be accountable. Often what happens is we have these goals for ourselves. We've been given performance reviews. There's a 360 feedback. Our manager gives us indirect feedback inside of a one-on-one meeting, and we commit in our minds like we're gonna make this change. We're gonna do something about it. But then guess what? The day-to-day, the practical, tactical stuff that we do to get our work done and to talk to our team actually overshadows the things that really make us better leaders. And so this coach is the one who's there to help you become accountable. Again, not a sign of weakness by any stretch of the imagination, to go to someone else, to use someone else. Sometimes people look at internal mentors for this. Here's the problem about using a mentor versus a coach. Number one, a coach is paid to do this. So there's a level of accountability on their side that they have to help you. But from a mentor perspective, often we may have issues that pop up pretty frequently, and you don't want to basically get the mentor so that they're just really sick of hearing from you because you're calling and you're reaching out to them a lot. That whole exhaustion thing from hearing from you too much will really get in the way of that relationship. So mentors are really not used to be talking to super frequently, because often they are doing lots of other things themselves. So you have to be cognizant of that. The coach, though, is paid to kind of be there. I wouldn't say beck and call, but they are there to be around, to help you and to guide you. And I think the last thing, which is a really big one as a leader, is that coaches help us grow. Are there other ways you can grow? Of course, getting 360 feedback, getting open feedback from your team members, making sure that you ask them and be very clear. Listen, there's nothing bad's going to happen as a result of this feedback. I want you to give me the most honest feedback possible because it helps me grow as a leader. And even if you've done something, you're like, I'm not sure, was that the right thing to do? You can go back to him and go, how did you feel about that? What did it make you feel like? And literally, honestly, tell me what it made you feel like. I found great success, me personally, as a manager, being the type of manager who is super open. And the reason why I was able to do that is over time, I was super transparent with the team on areas where I maybe messed up. And so it was easier for me to do that. But it was really super helpful, though, to have that kind of non-interested third party, the person who's not involved in the mix, help you as a source of growth and development. Because if you grow and develop as a leader, obviously you're going to be more effective for your team and more effective for the organization as a whole. And then if you're looking to ever move up in the organization, then that's exactly what coaching helps you do. So keep this in mind. This is not a sales pitch, again, because I'm not looking to really expand that side of my business, but I wanted to give you the insight because sitting there listening to the folks that were teaching these little tiny kids about Taekwondo and the respect and the challenge that they had, and hearing how she related to them. And again, their cute little minds and how they process that. It was so sweet. But I know this is what happens a lot to people who are managing people, leaders. They're thinking it's a sign of weakness and it's a sign of strength. So rethink that. Okay, so now I'm going to go look and see if there are any questions that are brewing out here. Popping up too fast here. Okay, but while I wait for any of those to pop up, I did want to talk about one of the questions that came up in one of my last LinkedIn Lives, and that was, what's most important? There was a person who was an engineer, and they were moving now to managing engineers, and he wanted to know what was the most important thing that he could offer, or that the thing that he needs to focus on in order to be an effective leader now to the group of engineers that maybe before he was inside the group. And I would say the first thing you want to do is you want to listen. So what happens a lot when we are promoted inside the ranks is there could be kind of a lack of trust there. And there's also a blind spot that exists when you're inside the team versus now you're sitting as overseeing the team. And so if you go around and you talk to those team members and you make sure that you find out what they think is broken, what they think is working, what innovative and creative ideas they think can help to move your team forward, you're going to be a lot more successful. I would say the second thing, aside from really sitting and listening to the team and putting yourself into new mindset related to your leadership role, the other thing would be to make sure that you show that you care for them, that you care for them more than, let's say, in this new role, you want to prove yourself. You want to prove yourself to the senior leadership team. You want to prove yourself to your manager. But before that even happens, you have to build trust with your people. You can't get much out of them if you haven't built that trust. And so you want to make sure that you focus on that by showing them that you care about them, finding out if you don't already know about them. Find out more about them. If you do know a lot about them, make sure that you utilize that particular information to help guide them in and outside of work. Caring is not about what they can do for you. It's about what you can do for them. Are you serving them well? And that's based upon your knowledge from them about what it is that they have gone through, what their journey is like. So the more knowledge you can acquire that way, the better off you're going to be. I'm looking to see if there's anything coming through now. Sometimes technology does this to you. Let me go into my area and see if it'll pop up there. You got to love that. That's what live's all about, right? You guys get to see how I handle this. All right. So I do see some questions. Okay. So Alex, thank you for joining in here. Alex says, Heather, a great example. However, I have a specific problem with the fact that people use the concept of leader to refer to a manager or a team lead. A leader is not someone you find every day, but is a rare talent. It's not something that you can learn also to be a leader. You either have that material or you don't. I do agree with the term grow, but not as a leader in particular, but as a manager, as a team leader, as a parent. I wouldn't be doing the work that I did if I didn't believe that managers needed to and could grow. And I do believe, I'm one of the rare that I believe that someone could be a manager and a leader. Okay. So that idea that when you are leading a team, okay, leading is inspiring, showing that you care. There are certain like real soft skills that are there, inspiring great performance, helping people grow. But managers, if you're a leader, the odds are you're a manager too. So you can be one and the same. And actually you can be an inspirational manager. Does that mean you're a leader too? Absolutely. So I do use them interchangeably, but it's because I have this great belief that if managers of people, managers of teams, focus on showing people that they care, inspiring greatness in the people that are on their team, showing great appreciation and the value for every person that's on their team. They can be both manager, meaning managing and helping their team manage the tasks of the day and of the projects, but at the same time be an inspirational leader. So I definitely appreciate your perspective. Many people feel that way, but I do think that leaders can grow. For example, I started off managing teams. I was really good at managing teams, but I do believe I was able to inspire people to think outside themselves, to overcome obstacles inside their mind. I think that is the kind of the role of the leader, but I was a manager of people. When you go look in HR, I was the person who they directly reported to. So just kind of keeping that in context. I definitely appreciate that as well. Stephanie, hello there. How do you build trust with people who use you as their coach? Well, I think the first thing is I let my guard down, because the last thing I want to do as a coach is to act like I'm perfect. And I'm absolutely not perfect. And so I think when there are instances where they are sharing with me inside our session and I find that it's something that resonates with me, I don't distance that from myself. I put myself in there and say, you know what? I have also dealt with that situation. But here's what I've found that worked for me. And does it work for me 100% of the time? Maybe not. But what it does do is that when I do that, it brings me closer to them. It makes me realize that, sure, I'm coaching them. I might be more emotionally intelligent than most, but I'm not perfect. And so that is what brings me closer to the people that I coach. And to be honest, the people that I consult with, any organizations that I work with, organizations are made up of people, right? So we build trust through building relationships with them. So I focus a lot on just how do we build that relationship, getting to know people, showing concern for them. Again, not just for what they're doing in their job, but also for some things that are maybe personal and outside of work. And I also build trust by not divulging or going against their confidences. I make sure to keep that stuff close to my vest, but it helps to shade or to frame out what I see inside the rest of the organization. Hopefully that helps with that question, Stephanie. Anybody else there with questions? I'm not seeing much out there. So remember, we're talking about leadership. We're talking about management, challenges in that situation. We're talking about employee loyalty, retention. If you're someone who feels like you're having to to leap over things all the time. You're feeling a lot of stress at work. One of the things that I have been reading a lot about, and of course I saw as a manager and see now as an organizational consultant and coach, is that there are a lot of employees, including managers, team leads, supervisors, executive leaders, that are really walking around quite stressed. Part of it is what I think it is that we have this obsession with perfection. Okay. And once we start to give ourselves more grace to not be the perfect person, but to be the person that strives to improve every day, we can then let ourselves off the hook. I do believe stress will decline in that. Now, I'm not talking about the ones who may be having stressful times at work, maybe abusive relationships, maybe financial situations, homelessness. There's all kinds of things that are happening to our team members outside of work, and we have to really get to the bottom of that. But often what happens again is we just think, oh my gosh, I messed up and I can't mess up. So as you can see, and as most of you know, I have my Leadership with Heart podcast. The other day, some other podcaster asked me to interview with him. And when he was asking me, we were talking about one of the things that I found during my almost 100 interviews with different leaders. And one of the things I found very interesting is that a chunk of them, when I would ask them when was a time when they were not the best versions of themselves, they would think for a minute, and then they would take me back to a time 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe at the beginning of their leadership journey. And I found this to be so insightful because what it says to me as they continue to do that, there are some who are just straight up very transparent and they talk about something that happened just the day before, something that happened just the last week. But many of them will go back way far. And I think this comes down to we want to distance ourselves from our imperfections. There is a certain level of shame and guilt and pride that's wrapped into us as leaders, being someone who has a cape on, who jumps from high buildings and doesn't die, right? And that is not what leadership is about. We do get hurt. We do have problems inside the workplace. We do have problems at home. We do have insecurities as well. So I think those are some of the things that I think we need to think about. Ask all the questions you want. It won't show to me that you are weak. It will show to me that you are strong when you ask questions here. And then we work together through the comments, actually. So anybody else who wants to answer anymore, we work together to make sure we get to the bottom of some of these issues. I find that really interesting. And it's one of the things that that whole distancing, 10 years ago, I wasn't perfect. 10 years ago was the time when I wasn't my best self. And this is how I am today. And I'm like, wow, I've revealed myself now in my greatness versus let's look at like yesterday. Like, let's do an examination of conscience. Like, how are you actually yesterday? Were you too short with staff? One person just recently, I was doing a keynote in Tennessee, and I met a gentleman. And when I met him after, he said, you really spoke to me. Here's why: because I tend to be someone who's already focused on my people, but I forget about the little details. How do I show my team members that I care? And so he said, often what happens is I walk into my office in the morning and I say hello to everybody, and I sit and I talk to them. But then at the end of the day, I'm really just in a rush to get out of there, and I just jet. And now what I'm going to do, now that I've listened to you, Heather, and I know what caring really looks like and connection really looks like, I'm going to stop by. And even if I can't spend a lot of time, I'm at least peek into their office and wave goodbye to them. And if I see that their face has distress, I'm going to make sure that I do pause a little bit more and take some time. And so maybe I make those rounds a little earlier. So if I need to give time to them, if I see that there was something that happened in their day that they really want to talk to me about, I'll have time to do that. So these are all those things that, again, he realized in the moment, he recognized in the moment, and that's Hal. So if you're on the line right now, Hal, thank you so much for giving me a great example and being a great example of someone who leads with heart, in my opinion, because it's saying, oh boy, I'm not perfect. So those are kind of the key things we want to be looking at. Thema, hello there. Thank you so much for checking in and joining the LinkedIn Live. Some of the other things that I find to be interesting, another person after that last talk, he came to me because he wanted to talk about what was happening inside his organization. And he said that he doesn't even know if someone like me could ever come and help an organization like that, because they had no reality check. They weren't living in the reality, knowing that they needed help. And so he was trying to talk to me about, how is it that I can get you to come in and help my leaders understand the positive power they possess. And so we talked about, different ways that he can do that. And one of the ways was so funny because I've done this before. Actually, I did this with my husband one other time before on another topic. I told him, why don't you just get my book, The 7 Intuitive Laws of Employee Loyalty, and you wrap it up and you put it in a gift bag. And then you give the gift to the person who you think needs it the most, or maybe the one who can make the decision about what it is that you can do to move that culture forward. Maybe it's someone in HR, maybe it's a COO, maybe it's a CEO, whoever you have that relationship with. When you give somebody something in the form of a gift, they're more likely to read it or to watch it or to listen to it. And so it was a good little tip that I gave him. It's worked for me personally before when I was trying to get through to something with my husband, and he did take it to heart and he saw it as a gift. And so those are just some of the things that you can you can think about as well. If you are trying to move culture forward, let's say you are a decision maker in your organization, or you're an influencer in your organization, and you want to be able to move things forward. How exactly can you do that? And that might be one really creative way to do that. Going back to Alex's comment about this idea of team leads and supervisors and managers, and only leaders are the ones that I think of leaders as a rare. And I disagree, because when I interview people in leadership with heart, I think leaders are everywhere. However, we are all works in progress. So I try to pick people on my show that are more emotionally intelligent, that tend to be ones who lean more towards the caring side of things, right? And the one who's more employee focused or others focused. But again, they nor I are perfect in that regard. And once we talk on the phone, I've had people say, Heather, I feel like every time we get on a call that I feel like we're doing counseling or something. And it's not my intention to do that, but I like to go deep with people, because when we go deep, like, my learning is richer. The people who are listening on the podcast, their learning is richer. And the people who are sitting on the other side of that Zoom call, their learning is richer. And my hope is that they change kind of one thing, even just that day. And then if the day turns into a week and the week turns into a lifetime, that is my hope. And if I touch one leader and one leader changes and improves, then I do think that's leadership growth. And I think that leaders should always be on a constant journey of trying to get better and to grow themselves. Any more questions in the queue? I haven't seen any more. So I'll probably end up wrapping up here soon if no one else puts anything through. Are you having any challenges right now? Any challenges? Think about, there's two things I want you to think about. If you know of anyone who you think would love to see on this LinkedIn live show and or on my Leadership with Heart podcast, please do drop their names in the comments. So those are going to be people who are, as I've described, they really do care about their people. You know that by how they respond to maybe adversity when it happens inside the team, or if the team comes to them, one of the team members comes to them and there's some issue outside of the work, you can see how they respond with how they care about them and the issues that are happening outside. You can just tell. I think we all know it is that person that you have probably thought about as the best manager or leader or team leader, supervisor you have ever had. It doesn't have to be a big name person, because it's not about that for Leadership with Heart. It's about grasping and grabbing the hearts of those people and being able to encapsulate what it is they do that's different, but also how maybe they are not perfect. And what does that look like? So that those who are listening on the other end can grow. The other thing is, please drop in the comments. If you don't have it now, be thinking about it today and the next couple of days. And you can either just email me at heather@customerfanatics.com, or you can drop me a direct message here on LinkedIn. And let me know some of the things that you'd be interested in me talking about on this LinkedIn live show. This show is for you. It's for whoever it is that's listening right now. You need to hear this message, right? And so please put that in there, and also tell other people about it. If there are other people that you think in your workplace are struggling in their leadership, they're struggling to be more inspirational leaders, or to have impact, or to have influence, or they felt like they had influence, but they lost control of that. Let's talk that through, and make sure that you drop their names or send me their names, and I'll make sure to have them too on the show, and we can get into some really deep discussions. June, thank you so much for joining. And I definitely appreciate that you like this format. I rarely do it on my own. Occasionally something just comes to me, like that Taekwondo example where the kids were really kind of, you could see they were a little upset, and she noticed they were upset, which is what we need to be doing. Let's notice more. Today, do me a favor, commit today and tomorrow, if you lead just one person, to notice them. Okay. Notice them and act upon what it is you're noticing. Don't just notice they're upset and walk by. Notice they're upset and sit and engage with them. Because usually people will tell you a whole bunch by what you see in their eyes. And if you pay attention, your leadership effectiveness will actually flourish. So I don't see any other questions right now. This has been Thank you, Thema. And uh, June, yep, everybody should be leaders. You're absolutely right. This is not just about title. Obviously, I mostly interview people who are leaders of teams because I do feel like they're the ones who do have the biggest impact on organizational culture and engagement and retention. But I do want to say before I leave that whenever I'm talking about leadership at the heart, it's not just people who have the titles. Each one of us have an obligation and responsibility, and to be honest, the gift to be that caring person, the person who lift others up, irrespective of what role we are in the organization or in society. So I lead people inside my household, and they lead me. Right? Even though I'm the mom, I'm one of the parents. My people lead me. In the organizations that I'd worked for, all of those people led me. They gave me perspective. So I 100% agree with you, June, that everyone should be a leader. We should all aspire to greatness. We should all aspire to get better. So let's just sign off on that one. Just make sure that you're paying attention to those that you walk into. You do have a responsibility to make them feel like they're important, like they're respected, and they're valued. Have a great one.